Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Franchising 2 Trends, Opportunities, and Obstacles, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network with FranNet of Virginia and DC. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the expected large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session, time permitting. We have also enabled a live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Heather Rosen, President of FranNet of Virginia and DC. Heather is a franchise specialist from longtime SBDC resource partner and the creator of the SBDC's FranFit program, FranNet. Heather began her career as a lawyer, advising businesses on contractual matters and litigation strategy, and then ran marketing and business development teams for large international law firms. In 2009, she left legal services to go into business for herself through a franchise. Now the owner of 2 franchises, Heather conducts franchise education workshops for the Virginia SBDC and several other organizations. She provides coaching on how to make the transition from employee to entrepreneur and offers guidance to people researching full-time active, semi-passive, or large-scale area development franchise opportunities. Please join me in welcoming Heather Rosen.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. Welcome to those who've joined. I assume some of you were on last week's webinar, Franchising 101. If not, and you're just joining this one, you can request a recording, I believe, from the SBDC of that one, or you can wait until next quarter. We'll be doing it again. But as Sheila said, I am an advisor on franchises. I have a couple franchises myself. And so the advice that I'm going to give you today is based on the formal research on businesses and economic trends, but also my personal experience. I'm going to share that whenever I can. And I went into this business at a time that I was changing careers, some similarities to things that are happening now, where the job market is changing, and the demands of my time got very much out of control, to the point where I got very ill, and everyone around me was ill. And so I decided, in order to have a healthy life and also be in control of my ability to make money, I was going to become a business owner. And that is definitely happening on a large scale now, both in Virginia, DC area, but really all across the country. And when I went into business, again, I had a legal background. I had done marketing and business development for a huge international law firm. So I said, if I go into business, I want to utilize my skills, the things that I was good at, and go into business. But the fact was that I had a really big salary to replace. And so I went into business through a franchise as a shortcut, because the franchise already knew how to run a consulting business. They knew how to find our target customers. They had materials they could use, and they had a lot of research that I could use as well. And I still work with them. It's actually a company called FranNet as my research arm. I mean, I've been in this business for a very long time, but there's really no time as a consultant that I wouldn't need recent data on the state of the franchise industry. So I still pay them a royalty primarily for that, and an assessment tool that I offer to candidates that I will also make available to you. Um, and it's a neat business model because as an attorney, I had to charge people for every 6 minutes that I spent with them. But as an advisor on franchises, our services, my services, are completely free because the franchisors pay us a fee to educate people on businesses, and I don't have to work for them. I can just give people really good advice. So now let me get into the presentation. I'm going to take you back to a time that you're all going to remember during COVID, because I want to show you what things were like back then and how things have changed, why they've changed, because a lot has happened in the last 5 years. In February of 2021, if you remember, we were still in lockdown. It was still the case that, everybody was very susceptible to dire medical consequences if you got COVID, and the vaccines had just become available, but they were only available to people in compromised medical situations. Okay, so basically we knew that there was a light out of the tunnel. We knew that by, sometime later that year, we were probably all going to be able to go out into the world again. But a lot had changed. COVID really changed the way that people lived and the way that people did business. So at the time, and I started giving presentations actually for various government agencies during COVID. I did it before, but my topics during COVID were what's happening, what's changing, and how are businesses, including franchises, because that's my world, how are they responding to all of this rapid change? COVID had franchisees getting together and sharing information on a really rapid level regularly within my franchises. And within other franchises, there were franchisees, the management team is getting together, talking, Zooming, and saying, what do we do? Okay, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? A, testing B, getting back together in 2 weeks and sharing results so that we could all put our heads together and get smarter quickly and share best practices. Okay, so already by February of 2021, so much had changed. A lot of franchises actually did fine. I'm not going to say that franchises had a huge boom during COVID, but with all the businesses going away, most of the franchises did not go away, did not close, and we're doing, about the same, maybe a little bit less business, but are about the same. The franchises that did actually about the same, if not maybe a little bit better, were these franchises that supported construction projects and people who were spending more time at home. Um, People adopted pets, had children during COVID. So pet care and supply businesses, child care businesses. And as you will remember, there was a lot of parents who were, had kids who were trying to keep up with schoolwork and learn during COVID. And they said, there are going to be education gaps. And a year into COVID, there already were a lot of kids that were really struggling because they couldn't learn as well through Zoom. So, again, think about this in a business context. If you're a business, I started talking about you really it would be smart to have a business that filled all of these needs. Personal recovery, all the people who let themselves go because you could only see from here up during COVID, and now I have to get back into the world. I got to get myself in shape again. So businesses that dealt with personal recovery, the way people looked, the way they felt, people weren't going to the doctor as frequently during COVID. People wanted to get out and start dating again, so they needed to look good, but they also needed somewhere to go. So that meant that there were opportunities for new restaurant models, fundraising businesses, because there were a lot of not-for-profits, schools that were not able to fundraise the same way during COVID because people weren't going into school. So they parents couldn't drum up the fundraising the way that they could when people were going to sending their kids to school. And then, of course, cleaning business because everybody was afraid to go into spaces. And so, being a cleaning business, there was an additional opportunity for businesses that cleaned. And now, if you could also clean air, that was another opportunity for some businesses. Certainly during COVID, I mean, we kept talking about essential. If you were essential business, you barely had to shut down at all during COVID. But if you're an essential business, that also meant that people needed to buy from you, even if they were afraid that, something could happen to them. If you're essential is essential. So, think about, I would say to people, think about just having a business that was essential, which is really not that different from what I said before COVID, which is be a business that is recession resistant. It's really the same thing. I talked about, if you have a retail business, that one of the lessons learned during COVID was that you should be marketing more. You shouldn't just rely on people finding you by driving or walking by your location. The retail businesses that did okay during COVID were doing marketing, not, again, not just relying on the space because people weren't leaving their homes. Um, and I said, look at businesses where there's an outdoor component so that people could feel safer against being contaminated. Think about smaller spaces so that if you do have a drop off in foot traffic and you're a retail business, you don't need to make as much money in order to be profitable. And then think about a contingency plan, if this ever happens again. And then if you're a business, you don't want to rely, if you're a business and you serve primarily other businesses, you don't want to rely on one or two businesses as customers, because what if you're fine, but your customers go away because they go out of business? Okay. And there's a reason that there's a star next to these things. Essentially, all of these things came to be. Everything that I said was an opportunity and was going to happen and what should be a lesson learned from COVID really carried forward. The things that you'll see at the bottom with the stars, I think that most businesses are not necessarily thinking into the future about contingency plans the way that they should. Hopefully you will because you're in my webinar. And you never should rely on 1 to 2 customers in any business, but especially if you're a business that serves other businesses, because your customers, your businesses, you might be fine, but some of the other businesses might close. And right now we're seeing a lot of turnover in independent retail businesses. They're just not able to sustain it. We're seeing, mass closures. Again, not necessarily in the franchise space, but among retail businesses, we're seeing a lot of them go away. So more about that. So over the past several years, between the year that COVID was ending and we knew it was going to end, and today, this is what has happened. The funding environment has changed significantly. Okay, so interest rates are higher, loan origination rates for SBA loans are up. Retirement fund portfolio values, they went down the earlier part of last year, they went up. But if you're watching what's going on in the markets today, they're going down again. I think we're going to be experiencing this kind of up and down of if you're invested in stocks and bonds, I think that's going to fluctuate. Okay. The franchise industry, as a result of COVID and, certain businesses being more of an acquisition target. There's been a lot of mergers and acquisition activity and private equity investment in franchises. There's been a consolidation. which has been overall a really good thing actually in franchise industry, because what it means for franchises is more money is coming into franchise systems, which enables franchises to invest in a lot of cases technology. But also you're going to see there's a share. I'm going to talk about this some more. There's a sharing of intelligence among franchises that are now consolidated under a umbrella brand. Um, Work from home jobs are almost gone. There are still some companies that are offering some sort of a hybrid situation. And of course, the job market is shrinking. The cost of many goods and supplies and labor, there was a big increase in salaries after COVID. That is leveled off, and people who are looking for new jobs now are not finding the kinds of salaries that they found post-COVID. But there's still been a major impact on businesses that had to pay more for labor. Commercial real estate costs, the cost of opening up retail businesses have gone up. And if you do have a job, with a shrinking job market, there is significantly more time that you're going to be spending in a job and more pressure on you as an employee. And again, this is something that I personally can relate to. It's really a lot like things were in 2008, 2009 when I left my job and went into business. A lot of similarities between that and right now what people are experiencing in the job market. Okay. Um, but, it wasn't too long ago that people were able to be with their family, their kids. Kids are now older, they've gone to college. There's a lot of nostalgia for, parents that, really loved the time. Uh, Most of them loved the time that they got to spend with their kids. They were able to do a lot of things remotely, which meant more traveling, especially road trips, and just having that kind of time flexibility, which is all but gone if you are someone's employee. There are, again, people adopted pets, people had kids during COVID. You still have unhealthy and stressed out people. So those customers are still there. I think for the, most part, no matter what you think causes climate change, we're not going to get political here. We know that it's hotter. We know that we get more extreme weather patterns. We know that there are more bugs, okay? There are more extreme weather events. I'm going to show you how that's impacted opportunities for business. Office buildings are still, even though there are less people working from home, if you have had to go back into an office, it's not the same. People don't have their own cubicles. There's still less people who are working at a desk every single day. And some of the office buildings that were around, because of the high cost of rent, companies are still thinking about ways to not um, pay the kind of high prices that they have to pay for office. So there's still a lot of turnover within cities when it comes to restaurants. If you live near Washington, D.C., if you live near Richmond, you know that the restaurant situation is not at all what it was before COVID. Is that an opportunity for restaurants? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's still really hard to predict where people are going to go to eat at a restaurant on a regular basis, especially because restaurant prices are higher, the cost of food is higher. But just, I think we can all agree office buildings, for one reason or another, are still mostly empty. And what has happened over the past few years is that some of them have converted to apartments. Okay. So, federal cuts, artificial intelligence, a variety of reasons have caused a lot of jobs to go away, and that has had an impact as well. So, here are the recent developments as a result of these changes. Because interest rates are higher, SBA loan origination rates are back. the funding environment has changed. So if you're starting a business, what that means is sometimes in the franchise space, franchises will accept a deposit instead of the full cost of the franchise fee. So that's something that you can ask about, especially if you've applied or you are about to apply for an SBA loan. You might not realize that when you apply for an SBA loan, you actually make the application, you have to have a signed franchise agreement. So, if you need that loan for the franchise fee as well, your franchisor might be willing to accept a deposit while your loan is pending. A lot more people are looking at foregoing the SBA loan process entirely, just using their own funds. Sometimes, a lot of times, actually, especially if you're opening up a business that doesn't require a retail space, the more expensive retail space. Sometimes you have the funds already. You might not realize it, but you can oftentimes roll over retirement funds and use those funds without paying a penalty, without paying taxes on it because it's a rollover. I'm not going to go into the whole process, but people are looking at that vehicle of funding businesses more and more because it's less expensive to do it that way. As a result of all the mergers and acquisitions, I was alluding to this before, there's vertical scaling, where companies can use a common backend system. They can apply it to all of the franchises under the umbrella. They can share marketing resources. There's more talent, smart people who know how to run this business at the headquarters that can now advise even a younger franchise that's under that umbrella. It used to be that you had to go with, an older, mature business because they knew what they were doing, and the younger business didn't know that. But if everybody is under the same umbrella, they're all using the same technology and the same smart marketing team. A younger business can be a lot savvier now than the older business because again, they're all working with the same people at the headquarters office. As a result of less people working from home and jobs being harder to find, jobs being a lot more demanding. I mean, I used to get, over the past 5 years, I would get more and more calls. Most of my clients were people who wanted, they knew that they really didn't want to be an employee forever. They didn't necessarily think they could forever depend on having a job. So I used to get a lot of business calls from people who wanted to start a business while they were working from home. So, employers who thought, I'm not sure if I'm getting a lot of productivity from my employees who are working from home. Well, some of them were right. There were a lot of people that were starting businesses while they were working from home at a day job. Now, uh, that ability is going away. People are being or have already been called back into the office. So there was a growth in the number of franchises that would allow someone to start a business semi-passively with a manager in place. I think that's harder and harder to do. Because your job is going to be more demanding, and you're probably, if you haven't already been called back into the office, you probably will be very soon. So that's a recent development. So, with franchises, when the cost of goods went up, and looks like it's still going up, cost of labor went up, cost of real estate went up, franchises will survive. Some of the independent businesses will not make it. They won't really know how to adapt to that. Franchises usually put their head together with cost increases, and they just adapt the prices. Their prices go up, they pass them along to their customer. But at some point, the customer is going to say, do I really need this? So that's another, that's sort of the second phase of it. At some point, things get too expensive and the customer becomes choosier. And so you have to be a business that even though things are more expensive, the customer still thinks it's worth it, that they really think that what they're getting, the value that they're getting from you is still worth it, because ultimately somebody's going to come and offer them a less expensive option. And they have to believe that it's worth it to pay more for what they're getting. And with less people going into an office, the franchises started thinking outside of the box. They started thinking about, can we shrink the location? Can we sublease? Can we make this offering mobile or movable? I mean, if you're opening up a restaurant, and you're thinking, okay, I want to look your location, it really matters. If you have a retail business, your location is everything. But where do you put that location? Do you put it near where people live? Or do you put it near where people work? And if you look at Richmond and DC, a lot of the restaurants that have been there forever are near office buildings, because they were attracting either the people who needed to get lunch or the people who needed to take clients out, high end versus low end. But you're really not sure anymore where people are going to work, they're going to be going into an office or not, if they're going to be working from home or not. Um, and with customers, are there going to be enough people who are taking customers out? Because the customers' locations are changing as well. So, um, I used to get a lot of questions. I still get a lot of questions about vending machines. The vending machine business is still around, but it's very different than it was. The vending machine model was buy a vending machine, because you're not going to be able to live off of the proceeds of a vending machine, but buy multiple vending machines and put them into offices. But again, you can't count on enough people buying from your vending machine. But it's still a mobile business. So the 3.0 vending machine model is make it a mobile market, make it something that is not just soda or chips, that you could pretty much sell anything, and you can make it sell whatever you need to sell. And so it's kind of I call it, again, a mobile market. Some of the vending machines are selling earbuds, they're selling iPhone chargers. They can, and if it's not in a location where people are buying that, they can make it something else. They can actually have it sell advertising in some cases, right? It's a different model, but it's not the vending machine model that once was. That's really not a great business model anymore. It's not a dependable business model anyway. Um, and then in response to people not planning to, I mean, you have people who plan to retirement, but we all know that most of the people right now who are looking for something different, it's not something that was planned. It's something that I know I'm going to be cut, or I've already been cut from my job. So as a result of that, there's been a lot of talk recently about matchmaker programs or conversions, taking an existing business and turning it into a healthy business. I mean, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of discussion about entrepreneurship through acquisition, ETA. In fact, I did a program on it last year, which is, you find somebody who has built a healthy business and they're just ready to retire. They don't have children to pass it on to, and so they're just ready to retire and go into the sunset. Um, it is very, very hard to find a healthy business where somebody just so happens to be ready to retire. What exists out there are businesses for sale, but a lot of them need work. And what some of the franchises are doing is they have an acquisition department where they will help you find good acquisition targets, because you might think that you are able to find a good acquisition target, and the chances of you being able to identify that are not very high. Again, there's not a lot of them out there, and more likely you're going to find a business that has some real problems and you're not going to know it because you don't know that industry. So in some cases, the franchises have conversion and matchmaker programs where they can help you find those targets. There's not a lot of them out there. Um, More likely, there's a conversion program where if you have a business that's struggling, let's say you have an IT business, and you have some employees, but the federal contracts aren't there. In some cases, there is, a IT franchise maybe that could help you cut over to something that's more sustainable than a contract business. Also, if there are other kinds of businesses as well, if you have a hair salon or something like that, sometimes you can convert it to a model that already has a marketing program, for example. They already know how you can find the kind of customers, the volume of customers that you're going to need to keep your business. Maybe if you have a restaurant, but most likely the restaurant business is a lot tougher because the location itself is so important that in a lot of those cases, most of those cases, you're not going to be able to convert your business um, because the location just isn't sustainable. But it's a possibility. It's at least worth having a discussion with some of the franchises into about whether you can convert that into a more sustainable model, rather than just going out of business completely, which is what you're going to see a lot of independent restaurant businesses do. Not as much with the franchises. Um, Also, in response, and again, this is in response to a overwhelming need for people to own a business, be their own boss, control their own destiny, but have income coming in right away. If that is you, get on my calendar, let's have a discussion and let's see if there's something out there that you can convert into. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Also, there are a few franchises that do offer group health insurance. Most of them don't. But in some cases, in response to those needs that does exist. In response to having new customers, definitely seeing more pet businesses, more child care or child education businesses. Um, are there going to be a lot of people moving outside of the big cities? I believe that that's going to happen. It's already slowly happening. So that's a new customer to think about. Greater health and fitness needs, absolutely. I think there's going to be an ongoing need, but also an awareness that, you're not healthy. There's definitely fallout from people who still have long COVID symptoms, and just, the general aging process creates needs, as we, myself included, um, get to the point where we start experience health issues. I mean, it's a general life cycle, but it's a life cycle for people who have been through high stress of COVID and in some cases long COVID symptoms. So that's a new customer. You have more health and fitness customers now that you had before COVID. And just general new business needs, new issues, new problems to solve. How do you force employees to come back to the office when they don't want to? As a result of that, there has been an uptick in business coaching services, which is a franchise, more need for social events, more employee perks that you have to offer people. You don't want to just have to keep increasing salaries. You want to make it so that people want to come back to the office for a lower salary, and that creates a business opportunity. And you still need clean air and clean surfaces. You're still going to have people who uh, are going to want to hear that the office environment is not going to make them ill, or otherwise you're going to lose people, lose employees. They're not going to want to come back. And as a result of climate change means hotter, more water, more hail, more tree damage. This is an opportunity for businesses. First of all, you're going to have more eco-friendly companies out there. We've had, I don't say what we're going to have, we've already had more businesses that talk about their products are better. They do less harm to the environment. They do less harm to animals. There's more discussion of, recycling still as a result of COVID. Businesses that keep things out of landfill are still, um, that's still happening. That's still being discussed among businesses. And then just the reality of what hotter, wetter, more hail, more trees coming down means to property. You have more businesses that deal with exterior and interior damage. And franchises just more talk about balance and flexibility. I mean, it was always the case that there were franchises out there that offered a lot more work-life balance, a lot more time flexibility than jobs. But now there's more discussion about that. Okay. So the reality is if you have a franchise where you're working for other businesses, you're probably going to be able to conduct most of your business from a laptop. You do probably also have to do some in-person networking, but a lot of networking events still happen online because so many B2B franchises run from a laptop. So that could be, a very nice lifestyle for you, but also it could give you the opportunity, maybe if you're thinking about relocating to someplace that's less expensive than where you're working now, that gives you a lot more options. You can start a business and then relocate and not have to give up your business, unlike if you have a restaurant. Okay, you might think that you can just hire a general manager and your restaurant is going to be okay, but that might not be the case. Your general manager can leave, and then you have to find someone else that you might not be able to trust as much as the person that you hired when you were local. You could meet face to face, maybe somebody that you knew. Um, Also, franchises started stepping up and offering more services for their franchisees. In some cases, they have people in their home office that provide services so that you don't have to hire locally some of your employees. Franchisees are in some cases using contractors, so you don't have to have all you don't just have to use employees. You can use contractors, and then you can scale up and scale down as you need to. Franchises started helping franchisees find networks of contractors. So that exists a lot more now. A lot of franchises now offer call centers that didn't offer that before COVID. So that's a positive development as well. But think about a business where you're doing marketing. Again, maybe from a laptop. You're doing all kinds of marketing following the franchise's playbook. You're nurturing relationships with your clients and referral service, and you're talking to clients, but the franchise itself is doing a lot of the product and service delivery, and to some extent you're using contractors as well. That's a very good setup as a business owner, where you're not having to do everything. You're not having to manage as many employees. You have a lot of help from the franchise, and that's happening more now than it did before COVID. Also, a lot of business owners now, franchisees, are bringing in general managers to run the business while the franchisee in the short term keeps their day job. But again, you have to understand how much time you really have. If you're in the middle of a job search, and you want to start a business now while you have time, you might not know how much time you actually have to run the business. So be careful. I actually encourage people to, if you know that you absolutely have to have a job while you start your business, I actually encourage people to get the job first, know how much time you have to devote the business, and then you'll be able to make better decisions about which business is something that you're able to run while you have your job. And, back to the discussions about restaurants or food business generally, I really, and it's not just me, I mean, this has happened over the past 5 years. You've seen a lot more businesses that run from movable locations, including some upscale vending machine businesses. Restaurants in general have scaled down their menu offerings in the franchise space. There's a lot of self-service options now. And then the more upscale, more expensive food offerings, restaurants are offering experiences. If you look at movie theaters, a lot of the movie theaters now, it's not just going to a movie. They're offering, special events, cocktail offerings as well. It's not just you can't make it as a restaurant and a movie theater if you're offering just basic things because people aren't willing to travel to you. People aren't willing to pay a lot of money to be in your space. So if you're offering, if you want to be a restaurant today, you better be offering an experience, not just food. Something that people can't get from DoorDash, something that people can't get from the prepared food section of their local supermarket. If you go into a supermarket today, you'll see there's a lot more prepared food offerings, including some frozen foods from franchises that you couldn't get before COVID. So, again, if you're paying rent and you need to charge a lot for your food, make sure that your customers are getting more than just the food if they come into your restaurant. And then there's the question about food safety. Food safety standards are changing. The FDA is not regulating food the way that it used to. The FDA staff has scaled down. So, I mean, as a restaurant owner, this is a risk for you because, if you are doing this independently, you're at great risk of serving somebody a food that makes them very ill or, potentially kills them. But even if you're serving food through a restaurant, I mean, if you do a Google search, even McDonald's serves food that has put people in the hospital, even with their, awesome food regulation program. They've got, a lot of regulations that a lot of the food franchises don't have because they're this huge organization. Even they serve food that makes people very sick. So you really want to look at opening something that makes enough money, but also, one illness that your customer has, what kind of impact is that going to have on your business? You might be out of business if that happens. And then what happens if it makes local news? People are going to stop coming to your restaurant and you're done. So something to think about. Um, Top 10 opportunities right now, in my opinion, seeing what's happening to businesses, seeing the opportunities out there and knowing who the customers are right now. I think if you are getting into retail, if you want a business that has a physical location, the best opportunities right now are in beauty, fitness, and wellness. These are service businesses that open up in retail spaces. These are businesses where you can, much easier than selling a product, you could create an experience and increase your pricing in response to product costs, your product costs going up and your labor costs going up. People can have an experience in a retail business that provides these services in a way that they simply cannot have by walking into a convenience store, for example. Um, Also, the number one or number two, I think these are interchangeable depending on whether you want retail or service. If you're willing to go into a service business, I think if you can offer a service related to selling, fixing, or improving a home, you're in a great space. I think that there's going to be, I mean, in areas like Washington, D.C., there's always been this opportunity because the federal workforce, the military workforce is they move. I mean, people, especially in the military, you have a lot of people coming in and out of Washington, D.C. for 2 or 3 year stints. It's the way of our town. But I think that because of the federal workforce impact on, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., we're going to have a big uptick in people relocating, maybe outside of the area, or maybe just to a less expensive home, smaller home that's more affordable because now I don't have my job anymore. I need to downsize. If you can have a business that provides a service related to homes, I think you're in a really good spot. Um, and there's a lot of things that could be in this category. The franchise trend of businesses that are um, coming under an umbrella. That's a really big opportunity because in some cases there are some younger, more cutting edge businesses that are getting smarter faster because they've been acquired by one of these umbrella organizations with a big management team. But also, as a franchisee, if you are looking for a business where you can grow, you don't just have the opportunity to grow by acquiring more territory because that territory might not be available when you're ready to grow. You also have other franchisees within the franchises within the portfolio that you could acquire that might be very similar, and there might be a cross-marketing opportunity for you within the same franchise family. I'm actually going out to Texas to meet with one of the home services franchise umbrella companies to find out more about that because I think that could be a great opportunity for people who, they don't necessarily have the money to acquire multiple territories, but they want a growth opportunity. I think some of these umbrella organizations offer that same kind of opportunity because the territory might not be available within your franchise, but it might be available in a very similar franchise managed by the same company. Um, and then B2B franchises, B2B franchises are pretty low cost franchises. You're going to need probably at least $60,000 to start a franchise that can really feed you. You can go into business for less money, but the businesses that are less money, they either are really side businesses where you're never going to be able to live off of the kind of money they generate, or they're going to still take you 10 years or more to have any kind of an income that you can live off of. The reality is that if you're going to start a business that is going to support you within the next 2 or 3 years, fully support you with the kind of income that you're used to in our part of the country, you're going to need at least $60,000. And you're probably talking about a franchise that offers a service to another business. These businesses can make a lot of money with a relatively low investment, and there's an increased demand right now for businesses that can help other businesses. A lot of businesses right now are struggling, and these franchises really can help them fix problems before the business has to completely call it quits. I think there's a huge opportunity for that. There's always an opportunity for these businesses, but right now, a lot of the independent businesses are really going through it. They're really having some pain, and they're listening now to advisors. Um, Also, businesses that offer call centers that free up your time as a business owner so you don't have to constantly answer your own phone or hire someone else to do it. Franchises that harness AI to help you acquire customers. This is one of the biggest differences right now between franchise businesses and independent businesses. Franchise businesses, in a lot of cases, have the money to really harness AI to develop business for their franchisees. You're getting customers because of what they're spending on technology. Small independent businesses, it's going to be years before they figure it out. I mean, they think that they're smart because they know how to use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just skimming the surface of what AI can help businesses do. You need to have a much more sophisticated system than just ChatGPT in order to really utilize AI. And a lot of the franchises, they're already there. And so people are coming into franchising, learning from their franchisor, plugging into the technology that the franchisor has already built. And, they might not love the fact that they had to pay a franchise fee, but they're getting customers that are well, surpassing what they spent with that franchise fee because of the fact that the franchisor has already figured out how to do this. Okay, that's a huge opportunity that a lot of independent business owners that are trying to open up a business on the cheap are just missing out on. Um, Businesses that can be manager run or general manager run, MR or GMR with a semi-absentee owner, that is still possible in some cases. And I think that, if you are a contractor who is, really, who's been let go or who knows that they're going to be let go because you see the writing on the wall. You see that your company does not have a lot of contracts right now, and the contracts that they have are about to run out. Um, and you're thinking, boy, things are going to be pretty dicey for me at work. You should look into this option. There are still a lot of businesses out there that can be run by a manager. Maybe you can take a contract yourself, a small contract, 6-month contract, do some work, but start one of these businesses that in a couple of years is going to feed you and your family. It's a really good option for a lot of people that they're not necessarily thinking about. Using retirement funds right now, like I said, the market, yeah, just forget what happened yesterday. I think it's going to dip down a little bit more, but I think, the market's going to come back. It has come back in the past few months. This is a really good a good time rather to look at your retirement funds and think about whether you can diversify some of those funds into a business that is a lot more predictable than the stock market will ever be. Um, Seasonal businesses. This is something also that people can sometimes do while they have a day job. Start a business that mostly functions or, really is only full time from April to October. You have some employees who are doing the work. You can spend a couple of months getting your contracts in place with those businesses, hiring people to do the work, and then those businesses, everybody's scheduled in and can be run with, a manager in place while you have a job. And again, you're future proofing. You're making sure that you don't get to a place where you're let go. Suddenly you're without an income. If you already have a business running, you're not going to be as panicked as you would be if, this job cut is suddenly sprung on you and now you have to try to scramble and get a job. And by the way, it's not just losing your income. Don't forget you're going to lose your health insurance. It's not a bad idea to look at something manager run or seasonal that you've got going in the background to kind of, make sure that you're not in a desperate situation should your job be cut. Um, and right now the some of the really good franchises, you have experienced business owners that understand how to future-proof their business, buying up large chunks of territory or master rights in some of the top franchises. Don't wait. I mean, there's always going to be new franchises coming on board, but the newer franchises, they're unproven. They don't necessarily know how to run a profitable business in all parts of the country. It is a really, really good time. You might not think so, but this is actually a really, really good time to look to see what franchise territories are still available. Still, still some good territory available in major metropolitan areas, but not as good as it was 6 months ago, because there's, again, the savvy business owners are already starting to buy up territory rights to the best franchises that are out there right now. So, some obstacles, mistakes that people make when they're looking for businesses. Keep this in mind as you're looking. Don't lead with, I believe that this is going to be a really hot business, or I'm really passionate about the product or service that this business offers. Um, the amount of money that you might need might be significantly more than you really wanted to take out of the stock market and invest or take out a loan for. The amount of time required might be way too much than more time than you actually have, and it might not be a skill set match. Um, People who go into business are more likely to be successful if their passion is not about the product or service. The passion is about their goals, and they make sure they have enough time and money to run this business. Okay, so start with that, and then find a business that offers a product or service that you know is in demand in your area. Um, you don't need to look at franchises in which you have industry experience. Actually, less than 25% of franchisees are in the same industry as they worked in as an employee. The skill set itself is much more important than the industry. Think of it as going into business with a partner. The franchisor is going to be your partner. Think of it as going into business with a partner who has the industry experience, but you have the right skill set. That's what you want to lead with. But it's better to have the franchisor be your partner than going into business with an actual partner. I understand that sometimes people have to do it because they don't have enough money or they don't have enough time. But if you do have enough money, or you can find a business that you can afford on your own, and you can find a business where you alone, have enough time to run it, it's going to be better. Because if you go into business with a partner, don't forget you're going to have to split your profits with the partner. They're not going to just pay for half of the business and not expect half of the revenue. You might not make enough money if you're only getting half of the revenue. Also, you're going to have to agree with your partner on everything related to the business. And you might not be able to do that. There are lots of businesses that have to close because either you can't agree on things with your partner, and so you're not seeing eye to eye. You end up in a big fight, and you want to, one person wants to get out, and so you have to buy your way out. Or your partner might end up splitting up from their spouse. And as part of the divorce settlement, the spouse wants half of the value of the partner's share in the business, and you don't want to pay for that. So, so you have to close the business for that reason as well. I've seen that happen too. So it's not a good idea. If you can avoid going into business with a partner, it's better that you start alone, build your business, and then if you want to raise some money, maybe you open up your next location with a partner. Maybe you do that, but you don't ever want to have to close your business just because of a partnership situation. Um, Also, you can hire a franchise attorney to look through your documents. Franchises are regulated. They have to disclose, they have to give you a copy of their franchise disclosure document, but don't hire the wrong kind of attorney to look at it. And don't have the wrong expectations. Go to a franchise lawyer, somebody who has seen multiple franchise agreements in the past. Make sure that they understand what the industry standard is, and don't have the wrong expectations. The franchise attorney, your attorney is not going to renegotiate your franchise agreement for you. They're going to give you the same terms as they give every other franchisee. They will talk to you about the terms. The kinds of things that you can negotiate are not the franchise fee or the royalty. Uh, they're going to negotiate, if anything, they're going to negotiate the territory. They're not going to change the pricing for you just because you decided to hire an attorney. And then, be careful if you have a day job, be careful if you have other businesses. Some franchises will tell you that you can run that business while you have a day job or other businesses. Um, Make sure that you can talk to other franchisees who have other businesses or have a day job, and those franchisees are successful. Sometimes franchises will overpromise you that, yes, you can do it, but there's actually no evidence that that's the case. Um, Opportunities to really pay attention to. If businesses that can make people more attractive, healthier, and feeling better. These businesses have always been in demand, but I think that more so than ever, again, as people age, as people deal with more long-term effects from COVID, as people deal with effects of eating food that might not be so good for them. I think if you're not paying attention, I pay attention to this. There's a lot more donut shops now. There's a lot more cookie shops now. That's not making people more attractive or healthier. So, this is as a result of people being really, really stressed out and needing more comfort food. Throughout history, there's always more, you know, unhealthy food businesses out there. And then the blowback is a lot of those businesses close. And now there's a health food trend, and you've got more people in the gym, and you have more people getting plastic surgery. If you have a business that makes people feel attractive, healthier, feeling better, you're never going to have a shortage of customers. Cost saving businesses. I alluded to some of these B2B franchises before, businesses that help other businesses reduce costs, and these are low cost businesses relatively in comparison to other franchise offerings out there. But also businesses that help other businesses change out their HVAC and insulation, because that's also going to help them reduce costs. I think there's going to be a big opportunity for those businesses as well. Businesses that have a product or service for the aging population, exercise, care, disability access, downsizing, and relocating businesses. There's a huge opportunity for that. These conversion, if you can find a franchise that can take an existing independent business that is failing and convert it into a profitable business, there's a big opportunity there for that. Again, I see more and more independent businesses that are going to close in the next year or two. If you can find a franchise that has a healthy business model that's sustainable, that can acquire those, I think that's a great opportunity. Businesses that help people sell homes and move, franchises that harness AI and other cutting edge technology, offer a call center, train your employees. One of the things that people will say, some of the people that I talk to don't want employees at all. And there are franchises where you never have to have employees. But there are some businesses where you absolutely need to have employees. Wouldn't it be nice if all of the training burden weren't on you, if the franchise itself could train your employees? I think that's a great opportunity, and franchises more and more are offering that. So other things to consider, this is an extra O in the TOO. If you're going to go into business through a franchise, view this as a 5-year project at minimum. 5 years is usually what you need at minimum to build up your franchise to a point where somebody else is going to see enough of a regular income from they see the progression. They see, over 5 years, your business has grown and grown. And now after 5 years, it's at a point where it's going to be potentially very attractive to a buyer. So if you're going into business, don't do it, I would say, unless you know you want to be in business for at least 5 years. There's going to be a 2-year hustle. Even in the best franchise, expect that it's the first 2 years in business is where you're going to spend the most amount of time. After 2 years, in a lot of cases, you can cut back your hours. Not every case, but a lot of times you can cut back your time. But you're better off. Your best case scenario is going to be going into business, putting full-time effort into business for at least 2 years, and then seeing if you can take a step back. Also, when you sell your business, when you're getting ready to sell, don't let it be a knee-jerk reaction. Plan. It can take less, hopefully less, but it can take up to 2 years to find the right buyer for even the best business. So plan for this. Build the business for sale. Business coaches will talk to you about that. There's actually some to some extent, some free business coaching services out there. Actually, the Virginia SBDC mentors can work with you through this. But you want to plan for your sale, build your business to sell, and make sure that you have at least 2 years to sell it. It might not take you nearly that long, but in case it does, be ready for that. And another thing to think about is that, franchises themselves can be bought and sold. I've actually got a couple of clients right now where we're looking at existing franchises that are profitable, where someone is looking to sell. Actually, I've got a client right now I worked with several years ago that is looking to sell his very profitable franchise. And he told me he's not in any rush, but he's already got a couple of buyers because there's such a huge demand right now for businesses that have some good income. So I don't think it's going to take him anywhere near 2 years, but it could, and you want to plan for that. But you have to also understand the franchisor has a transfer process. You need to go through that. They have the ability to turn away your buyer if they don't think that person is qualified to run the business. Now, they don't want to get in the way of you and selling your business. It's only going to be in the extreme process. But when you sell your franchise, you do want to involve your franchisor early. Let them know that you're looking to sell your business and that you're talking to buyers, because at some point your buyer is going to have to talk to the franchisor, and the franchisor is going to have to make the determination, this isn't a criminal, because they're not going to bring any criminals into their system, and that there's somebody somewhat qualified that they can train to bring them up to speed. Because when you bring in a new franchisee, the franchisor is still looking to make a royalty. So they have an invested interest in bringing in somebody who's, trainable at least. So start talking to them early. And look, your franchisor could actually potentially find you your buyer. That happens quite a bit. And some franchises have a formal resale process that when you decide you're selling your business, it's not just you going to a business broker. Your franchisor puts out an announcement to people like me that there's a business for sale. This is how much they're offering. Here's the detail. And they'll actually help you facilitate the sale. They'll actually help your buyer put together a letter of intent. And like I said, could even find that buyer for you. Whereas it might have taken you 2 years, you might be able to sell your business in a lot shorter time simply because you're part of a franchise system. Okay. You still want to make sure that the franchise route is the right route for you. I'm not going to go through all of it because I know a lot of you were on the previous webinar, but you still want to make sure that you're a system follower. You still have to understand that if you have exclusive territory, that there's going to be sales goals and there's going to be, protected boundaries and things like that. But you can significantly increase your chances of success and increase your chances of being able to sell your business by going through the franchise model. You still want to make sure you have the right skill set and all that. So, short term, Um, Simply put, find a business that you can get into where you will not fail, where you are more likely than not to be able to succeed. And the more research, the more help that you get through this process, that will improve your chances of success. Long term, make sure you pick a business that you'll actually like, where you will like the lifestyle of a business, and again, the other thing about restaurants, I'm not here to talk you out of restaurants, but you have to understand that if you are going into business as a restaurant owner, more likely than not, that is going to be your whole life. There is not going to be a whole lot of work-life balance until you have enough locations open that you can afford a general manager. It's probably not going to be likely with one or even two locations. So, to have three locations open, what kind of investment does that require? You're probably going to be looking at least $1.5 million. Maybe you don't need to spend that much money. Maybe you can get into business for a fraction of that amount and have the same income than you would have with three locations after paying a general manager. Because that general manager is going to demand a pretty nice salary if they're responsible for all your locations. And maybe you can have that great lifestyle flexibility right away. Okay. What are you looking for? Freedom, recognition, achievement, control, money. What are you looking for from this business? Find a business where you don't have to pay more than you need to have those things that you want out of the business. And then your exit strategy is to build an asset. You go into business for the income, maybe for the lifestyle, but ultimately, don't you want a business that you can sell one day, right? Build a valuable asset that you can either sell or pass along to your kids. I know people who inherited franchises from their parents. After all of the years, the franchise, almost runs itself, and the kids have an income. They can have a job, they can have an income and manage the manager. And when they're ready to run to stop working in the family business, there's an asset. They can sell that money and maybe buy a house from it. Okay. And for you, I mean, I know plenty of people who are in business through a franchise and they're in their 80s and they are running that business 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. It's their retirement job and it's very flexible. And you know what? It feels really good to have the money still coming in and not have to live off of Social Security and their savings. It's nice to see that money coming in. You're going to want to travel a lot more if there's money coming in, but also, and maybe more importantly, it keeps your mind young. It makes you feel important and relevant. A lot of seniors, they decline really rapidly once they retire. So, having something to think about and to feel valued keeps you young. So that's a very noble exit strategy as well. So lots of choices. I mean, they're not going to all be available on your market. As I said, I think you're going to need at least $60,000. But look, there's a big range. And if you think about restaurants, which even for the smallest restaurant right now, you're going to be spending at least $400,000 in a major metropolitan area to open it. Look what you can do for a lot less than that. And for a lot of people, it actually gives them, it's more affordable. They can have more business for less money when they're ready to expand. They don't have to come up with another four or $500,000 and another four and $500,000. What if you took a fraction of that money and put it to business that already supports you, and now when you're ready to expand, you don't have to come up with another four or $500,000. You have to come up with another 100 or $150,000, right? A lot easier to raise that kind of money. Okay, so you have choices out there. Here's some books that are available to read through. As I said, I contributed to More Than Just French Fries. I think these are all still available through Amazon. Thought leaders about franchising, about business ownership. This might be helpful as well. If you're going through this search now, do the entrepreneur profile, see what it says. And then, reach out. Again, nobody's going to charge you anything for this. There are people like myself, people like the mentors at the Virginia SBDC who are there to help you, who can guide you through this process. I have questions that are recommended questions to ask when you're doing the search. There is so much information you can get from other franchisees, and you can get from the disclosure document that they give you. A lot of people don't even read through it. You need to know what you're looking for. There is help, free help available for you. Utilize those resources. Okay. Here's the QR codes that you can scan if you want to take the entrepreneur profile, or if you want to get on my calendar. If you want, there's a booklet that gives you some of these questions. Get in touch with me if you'd like that booklet, and I'm here to help. And at that, I am finished with the presentation. Were there any questions that came in?
We
Nope.
didn't have any questions. I think you covered it well. So I will
Okay.
put a shout out. We have about 15 minutes. We're not going to sit here for the 15 minutes, but we will let you drop a question into the Q&A now if you have it, and pick Heather's brain. But that was very good information. Oh my gosh.
I know we pack a lot into
Yeah.
the trends webinar. And by the way, if you're not yet ready to do a search, come back next. We're going to be doing this again in April, I
Yep,
think.
April 1st. Well, this
Um,
one will actually be April 8th for this one, but
okay.
I did
Yeah,
put the
come
link
back.
for.
This webinar, I mean, there's some similarities, but I'm always talking about, the latest opportunity, the latest. I change this webinar every single quarter. So, come back when you're ready if you're not ready to pick your business right now.
Exactly. And I did just drop the link for anyone who wants to go ahead and put in. I don't know if you all can hear my phone ringing. If you all, it'll stop in a minute. If you all want to go ahead and sign up for this one again, because yeah, I mean, every time I listen to this one, it's different. So that's for sure, at least for what's going on at this moment, right? We still don't have any questions. So
Okay. Well, I mean, this is a more detailed webinar, so I anticipate that some of the people they just want to do the entrepreneur profile, start a search, and then other people are not going to be ready. But just stay in touch, take down the contact information. I think you're going to get that by email. Also, get in touch when you're ready. But it's an exciting time. I mean, I know that there's a lot of changes right now, and changes always make people nervous, but hopefully, one of the things I try to convey with this is that, first of all, even during COVID, there were businesses that were making money and there were opportunities ahead. Change creates opportunity. It's not just scary. It also creates opportunities. So there are people during this time who are going to make millions, billions, actually, that are already making billions. So, it changes scary when it is out of your control and you don't want to do next. No, you don't know what to do next. Hopefully I've given you some ideas, and if you want to get more into specifics, reach out and I will give you some ideas of businesses that you might want to start thinking about.
we did have a question pop in. With the emergence of AI, what is the best franchise business idea to explore at the moment?
Um, there's no answer to that question. It depends on your situation. It depends on what you're hoping to get out of the business, on your skill set, how much you have to spend on the business, how much time you have to devote. I mean, nobody is good at everything, right? We all have our strength. And so, there was a slide back there. I kind of buzzed through it, but if you're really good at sales, there's a different business that you should be thinking about than if you're not good at sales. You don't have to sell in every business, but some businesses absolutely. And selling to other businesses is not the same as selling clothing. Everybody's different. And everybody, like I said, has different criteria. And that's why I'm going to say again, take the entrepreneur profile, see what it says. And then if you're really serious about finding something, take the time to go through this process and have the discussions with me or someone like me about, really what's out there that's available near you that might check all of your boxes. I give pretty good advice, I think. I've only been in business for 16 years. That probably means something.
Exactly. Let's see. All right, so we did have another question pop in. So many people are struggling financially. I worry about the viability of franchises related to beauty and image, since affordability can continue to become an issue. Can you speak more to this trend and whether it will continue to increase this year, or if you think it's more at risk?
If you are interested or open to the beauty business, by the way, you would be maybe shocked that how few people who open beauty franchises actually are the customer. Lots of men open women's salons. So it's not for them. It's because of the amount of repeat business and the amount of money some of these businesses make. Um, because there are going to be more people with less money, discretionary income. The beauty business, I mean, you got to get your hair cut and you got to there's certain things that are a must. So if I'm a beauty business, I'm going into a business that at least offers a haircut service and hair coloring service too, because um, women and men get their hair colored and it makes you look younger, and you have to look younger to get a lot of these jobs. They're not going to hire somebody. I mean, ageism is real. So we have to look young, we have to look healthy if we're looking to get a job. That is not going away. Um, eyebrow services and lashes are there's some people who will get that done forever, but also it is discretionary. If you get your eyebrows done, you can get a tattoo and never need to get eyebrows done again. You can get the tattoos on your eyebrows, right? Um, and if you get your lashes done, you can use false eyelashes they don't look as good, but if money's tight, there's an option. But there's no option for getting your hair cut. Hair coloring too. I mean, yes, you can color your own hair, but you can't make it look as natural if you color your own hair. So I think that is the safer place to do. But once you get your hair colored, you have to keep coming back and getting it done every, I think, 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. So I think that's a sure, safe bet.
We have another question. Can you please speak a bit more about vending machine opportunities? I have a few options I'm reviewing, but even with the expansive options, I'm still not sure it's a good path. What's the best way to evaluate them?
That's a longer answer. Get in touch. But I mean, the short answer to it is, A, make sure you have enough money to buy enough vending machines, because one vending machine is not going to support anybody. And let it be something that you can adapt and move. I mean, vending machines are movable, but the old vending machine model, I think, is dead. I don't think you can rely on those being even profitable, because remember, if you have a vending machine, you're paying somebody rent. Just like if you had a retail store, you're paying somebody rent to leave it there. So you still got to be able to pay the rent. Um, and if you can't pay the rent, you're going to have to pay to move your vending machine. There are vending machines that are adaptable, that can have more than one income stream. So that's the better bet in vending. But again, even that is not going to work for everybody. But for some people, it could be a good option. Anyway, it's a longer answer, so just maybe worth an offline discussion if you're really serious about exploring vending machines.
Great. Well, thank you. I don't, we had a thank you come in, and other than that, we don't have any more questions. So, quick last words of wisdom, Heather.
Um, no, I mean, again, just look for the opportunity. It's there. Um, we at Virginia SBDC, we've got There are lots of vendors. There are a lot of mentors. I got the vending machine in my head. There are lots of mentors out there who are um, ready to help you, want to help you. Um, just be ready to pivot and find something new. And it might not, and be open to coaching, right? You might have
Absolutely.
some ideas about what you want. I mean, I think one of the hardest thing as a coach myself is talking to somebody who, they want advice, but they really just want you to say yes to your idea. Your idea might not be the best idea. So be open to coaching and maybe running with an idea that was not your original idea.
I think that's wonderful advice. So, well, Heather, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone else who joined us today and remind you that you will receive an email with a link to this recording. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we hope to see you all back here in April. Take care, everyone.